The polls are truly broken.
The stakes are clearly unprecedented. I'm Brian Derrick.
And I'm Glennis Nahar. This week, we're joined by Annie Wu Henry. Annie is a digital strategist from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. She, like us, is chronically online and has helped craft digital strategies for organizations like the Working Families Party and AOC. She received high praise for her role in John Fetterman's Senate campaign, leading his TikTok content and strategy.
We're excited to have Annie with us this week to check the vibes. And the vibes this week are...
All right, former President Donald Trump declaring victory on Super Tuesday. It has been a Super Tuesday for Donald Trump.
And a series of national headlines came out that generated bad headlines for Biden. We'll talk about what to make of those and what was perhaps missed in the media frenzy.
And
we've learned that it was a 9-0 decision ruling that Donald Trump can be on the ballot in Colorado and other states.
We'll also discuss SCOTUS's decision to hear Trump's immunity claim.
And
this will be my last term as Republican leader of the Senate.
Then we're going to play It's Giving, bring you into the group chat, and leave you with a good vibe. Let's go.
Ryan, I'm super stoked because we have Annie Wu Henry here.
Welcome to the pod.
Hi. Annie, there was recently a Meta outage. What did you do with your downtime?
It was like that meme that's like Instagram's down and then like Instagram's down with the two sides of the bus. Because I do think if all social media was down, I would just be so much more peaceful in my brain. Because it feels like a responsibility when it's up, but when it's down.
Totally.
Like everyone else is not also there. So I'm not like missing things. So I enjoy when the tech companies fail us.
Totally. Life of a digital staffer.
True.
And you're like a very online girly. We are
Chronically,
defined as
terminally
online.
Chronically. A couple pods ago, we talked about how Biden's now on TikTok. Have you followed the account? How do you feel about Joseph R. Biden's, foray into the TikTok digital sphere?
He's on TikTok.
Period.
Period. That's a thing that they're doing. No, so I was not surprised that they're on TikTok. Like they were going to inevitably be on that platform because there are a lot of people there and they have the resources to do it. So it just would be a lost opportunity to not. It's a wonderful tool, just like all of these digital spaces and things are, if utilized like effectively. And, there are so many pieces that I think we just have to be doing them all.
So as we are recording this, we are literally getting Super Tuesday results in, and they are, drum roll please, not shocking in any way, shape, or form. Donald Trump has pretty much pulled off a clean sweep of the Super Tuesday states so far, the ones that have been called, and same for Joe Biden. There's going to be a lot of chitter chatter around the edges. And so looking at the exact margins of the Nikki Haley versus Trump vote, the exact margins in a couple of states of like uncommitted votes for Biden, and the media is going to make probably 3 days worth of news out of that.
For sure.
But it's a foregone conclusion that it's Biden versus Trump. Today confirms that, and Trump will officially win the nomination based on his performance so far today, probably on March 12th, next week.
Thank you for that thrilling update.
But there are a lot of really important down ballot races happening that I think are a lot more interesting and could have a bigger impact on the rest of the year. And so a couple of those that we're watching, the U.S. Senate race in California, that's Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, Barbara Lee.
In California, NBC News can now project Adam Schiff will win the California Democratic Senate primary, meaning he will move on to the general election contest. Steve Garvey, former MLB player, will be the number 2 candidate to go to the general election.
Annie, did you have a dog in that fight?
I mean, I have thoughts about primaries in like blue states. The thing that really annoyed me about that race was that like whenever fundraising numbers came out from like, and Schiff and Porter were always in like top 5 of people who raised each quarter, and where the Senate map is at, and like where just in general everything that's at stake this cycle, it's like those millions of dollars being poured into like all Democrats for a seat that will like most likely go to a Democrat just feels like lighting a lot of money that like is needed in a lot of other places on fire. And I really wish that like people within our party could put their egos aside for a second and like go have dinner until you figure it out and it doesn't cost the American people millions of dollars.
100 million.
Yeah, like literally just like figure it out.
In addition to the U.S. Senate race in California, there are a handful of really important primaries happening for congressional races to replace Katie Porter in California, for example. The Republican primary running against Don Davis in North Carolina, at least 2 really competitive Texas districts. And Democrats are pretty much guaranteed to flip a district in Alabama after redistricting because it was a racial gerrymander. And so whoever wins that Democratic primary tonight is a walk-on guaranteed to win in November.
That's exciting.
And then the other spicy one that I wanted to include is that, do you guys remember Trisha Cotham in North Carolina, that state legislator who switched from Democrat to Republican?
Oh my God, yes.
And here are the results tonight for the Democrats trying to take over that seat. Nicole Sidman winning that race tonight.
And that is going to be, I think, a race that gets a lot of national attention because she belongs on NBC's The Traitors, not in the state house in North Carolina.
Totally. She is a traitor.
We got to get her out of here.
She's not a faithful.
Also, important DA races happening in LA, Austin, and Houston, and important judicial races happening in Arkansas, Texas, and San Francisco. So don't just look at the delegate count and move on. The presidential is going to be what the presidential is going to be, and we all know what the situation is there, but there are tons of other important races that people should be paying attention to. This weekend, we sort of had a nuke of a poll that came out. The New York Times put out this poll that was pretty damaging for Biden if you buy it, if you buy into their top lines. And the through line was people think that Biden's really old, which is hardly breaking news.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is.
Yes, and
absolutely.
Right.
Did you see this poll? Did you see the conversations online happening like around this updated New York Times Siena poll? And how do you think about these generally?
Yeah, I saw the poll. I didn't like really read into it that much. I just in general like hate polling, hate discourse around polling, hate the attention we give it in general.
Whenever I see these polls, I'm like, let me see the receipts. Like, literally, let me see the data. I want to know who you're calling, who's answering that phone call.
Yeah, and we're not the only ones to feel that way. Our favorite Fox News commentator, actually our favorite one, who gets in there and really throws some bows, Jessica Tarlov, did have a take on this.
The New York Times Siena poll had him tied with women with Trump at 46. So Biden won 57% of women in 2020 before Roe v. Wade was taken away and before we've had 7 or 8 referendums on reproductive choice and before women have become, again, the angriest coalition of voters. And now suddenly they're tied. That makes no sense to me. I know that Donald Trump released gold sneakers and he's been indicted, so he thinks that black people like him more now. But do you really think that he's going to get 20% plus of the black votes? Completely upends electoral history. The Hispanic vote in the New York Times Siena poll, so only 3% of their interviews were done in Spanish, when about 20% of the Latino electorate is only Spanish speaking. So that seems like it's not particularly representative. And then the Gen Z vote, again, this idea that Donald Trump is appealing to a generation that cares about the things that he cares about the least on the planet, like reproductive choice, climate change, gun safety. Something is a bit funky.
Annie,
Something is
funky.
Annie, you are the voice of a generation. Talk to us about Gen Z. Actually saying like the data is showing this like massive change potentially, or alluding to some massive change among young people. Talk to us about the vibes that you're seeing and how you can interpret like Gen Z's current position and the role that they're going to play in 24.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gen Z, I don't speak for all Gen Z, but like, I think
You're
from what
cusp,
I
right?
gather, I'm also cusp.
Yeah, you're cusp.
Okay.
But because of that, sometimes I think that I like view Gen Z and like, but I'm interacting with them. I mean, vibes of Gen Z overall are like not great. I think most of their vibes have been not great. And so their vibes are like not great, especially in the political world. And that's not with a certain candidate or party or any of it. It's just like bad vibes overall and like distrust of the system and like a bunch of generations before them like screwing them over and like they're expected to fix it and they're like how and like can't afford anything and whatever. I think that with Gen Z there's this narrative that we need to be wary of, and I don't want to like scare people because I don't think it's like this thing we can't come back from or whatever, but I do think there's this overwhelming thought that Gen Z like is more with the data and all the things that have shown like Gen Z is more generous, Gen Z is more likely to accept LGBTQ, all of these things that like we could put into like the Democrat bucket, and then we align that unequivocally with like Gen Z is gonna vote Democrat or Gen Z is Democrat, and that I don't think that's a perfect through line. And I think that we need to like people still want their voices to be heard, they want their votes to still be earned, and like just because they're generous and like support the queer community, like that doesn't mean you don't need to like listen to them and hear them and like really include them and respect their voices, because I think sometimes they're taken for granted. I think Gen Z just like TikTok, all of it, they like real, they like the authentic and raw and unfiltered, like all of that. With politics, none of that ever feels that way. Like it's such a curated political theater, like world of it all, that I think, I don't know. I just think we need to like put in the effort that they're worth if we want them to show up and do all the things, because I think they're willing to. It's just they want an actual seat at the table. They want their voices to actually be heard. And they want to be actually taken seriously.
There definitely is, I think, a misconception among like a larger part of the electorate that feels like progress and a leftward shift are inevitable. And maybe that's being finally questioned and that bubble's being popped a little bit. And a lot of people did maybe feel like, oh, Gen Z is just by default more progressive, is going to shift everything, is going to shift the Overton window to the left, and Republicans are screwed long term because they can't win these voters. And maybe we're starting to see how that might not be the case or might not hold forever. We saw a lot of coverage of the New York Times Siena poll about Biden's age. Essentially, it was functionally about his age was the top line, but we haven't seen the same coverage of the fracture within the Republican Party, that there are actually a large number of people showing up to Republican primaries in South Carolina, in Iowa, in New Hampshire, and again in several of the Super Tuesday elections. And they're showing up saying that they will not vote for Trump if he is the nominee in November. And a significant portion of those people are Republicans. Like, we're not just talking about independents. We're not just talking about people who crossed over the aisle to vote for Nikki Haley or something. These are 20 to 33% of the people voting in these elections. And it goes way up if you ask them, what about a conviction? If he is convicted of one of these many criminal charges. And that should be hugely concerning. And I think that it should be bigger news than it is. Right. But all that anybody can really talk about is Grandpa Joe.
I know. It's just not as exciting for like legacy media. I think for them, obviously talking about the sitting president and the way he presents as more elderly than Donald Trump is much more vibes. Appealing. It's the vibes.
Old man vibes. Well,
also, old people vibes. I was talking old people. There's like 3 different vibes of old people, and
my God.
Old people vibes don't have to be like a bad vibe. Like
Totally.
actually, I was talking about TikTok too. Like there's a lot of old people on TikTok that like are having like fame from being like
grandma. What's her name? You know what I'm talking about.
I know the grandma you're talking about. There was the retirement hype house or whatever it's called. There's the old gays. Like there's lots of you know? And so I think like old people, there's like, maybe there's more than 3, but there's like angry old people. There's like cute, endearing old people. There's like old people who are like, I'm old. I've lived my life. I don't give a fuck anymore. Like, I'm just like, I'm in my retirement. I'm doing life. Like, I'm going to be crazy.
Yeah.
I'm going to say what I want. I'm going to teach you lessons, like all of that, which is, I feel like a lot of the people we see on the internet. And then there's like the old people that just like come off as like old and like decrepit. And I think like people don't have to be one of those things. Like you can be the other thing.
Don't pigeonhole yourself into one category of old.
And so,
You can be an amalgamated old.
yeah, like look at Martin Scorsese. Like
Yes, yeah.
he's like
Why is he your number one old person?
no, Martin Scorsese and his daughter are on TikTok and they're like people love him for it. And like I think some of it's because he's like coming off as just like he doesn't really like he's not coming off as senile, but he doesn't understand TikTok, which is
Right.
very valid. Like there are people who are like 37 and don't understand TikTok. So like it's fine.
Wait, okay. But 37. Are we like I'm pushing 37.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I do think
but you
I mean,
understand it. There are people I know that are like in their 20s and don't understand. So it's not like
30.
a
and
bad
I'm a
situation.
TikTok head. We all know this here. I'm a TikTok head.
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese is actually really funny, but what's funny is the juxtaposition of him being one of the greatest American filmmakers of all time, all of a sudden on this like 90-second clip app and trying to play around with it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
like, we get it. But it's cute and it's endearing and like America loves it. So
yeah, and America's
Yeah.
got to get used to old people vibes because we're going to be around
old people vibes
them.
don't have to be bad. Old people vibes.
Oh, we're
people
used to
bad
it.
vibes.
We're used
Yeah,
to it. What I'm hearing from you, Annie, is that we are speaking directly to the White House and we are saying, let Joe be free because
Yeah.
he doesn't give a fuck. Like Joe, when he's actually
his
being
dark
really
brand
candid, 100%. Like that is his really natural tendency. And I think that they really gatekeep him and don't let him or like don't want him to be
They
in
don't let
those
him go
settings where he's
rogue.
like, let him go rogue. Let him do it. Let him attack Trump. Let him say what he wants to say. We want to see it. We want the I don't give a fuck vibe, Joe.
And
We
that's not
want-
the meme. Like
we
like
want-
the actual dark Brandon moments aren't the meme. The actual dark Brandon moments
No.
are like when he just like says shit
Right.
and hits.
My arch enemy, Brian. We're going to talk about him again. Clarence.
Clarence Thomas.
I have a you know that John Waters clip? I hate the Supreme Court.
I hate the Supreme Court!
We got some news from SCOTUS. 9-0.
9-0 decision.
Yeah. 9s across the board. Reverses the Colorado Supreme Court decision, which kicked Trump off the state ballot. And the ruling said, because the Constitution makes Congress, rather than the states, responsible for enforcing Section 3 against all federal office holders and candidates, we reverse.
Raise your
Okay.
hand. Raise your hand if you're surprised.
Yeah.
No hands. Let the audio reflect. No hands. This was in the bag for him all along.
Totally.
I'm sorry, but like from the day that the Colorado Supreme Court came out and with this ruling, it was pretty obvious that this is where we were going to end up.
Yeah. I'm not like, well, also Colorado as a state, like any of the states that have been doing this, like haven't been a swing state that I also, even if it happened, was like, this is dramatically gonna shift anything. Like, let me know when it's Nevada. Let me know when it's Pennsylvania. Let me know when it's Michigan. Like,
Totally.
But in general, I'm not totally I wasn't surprised, and I also like kind of agree, and like not to agree with Clarence Thomas, but like I kind of agree that like this wasn't about his participation in like an insurrection or anything, right?
Correct.
This is about a state being able to say like this person can't be on the ballot, and like if this was reversed, we would not like want that. And from a Democratic standpoint, like
they did not claim that he did not participate in an insurrection. They did not rule in any way on whether or not he had acted in a way that was contrary to the Constitution, to the powers of the office of the presidency, to the country's sort of founding principles. They just said that it was not for the Colorado Supreme Court to decide.
So the Supreme Court is going to hear another case, correct?
This is the January 6th case. In the January 6th federal case, Trump's lawyers have advocated this stance that he is completely immune, that he has pure presidential immunity. We've talked about this before. Right. They said he could order the assassination of a political opponent and it would be fine, unless the Senate convicted him first. And so the Supreme Court last week agreed to hear that case, which is a huge win for Trump, because as we've said all along, the goal in many of these cases is not to actually win them, but simply to delay. And win in November. And then he can order the Department of Justice to drop the cases.
Right.
And so this is not good, because this is one of the strongest cases, I think. Like, it's related to his attempts to overturn the election, to stay in power, to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power, like all of these core things that really should matter greatly to the American people. And we want the trial. We want the evidence. We want the case to be made that he was furthering an insurrection against the country. And now we are not going to get that case until the fall at the earliest, because they're going to hear the immunity portion of the case as to whether or not he was immune. They're going to hear that in April.
Mitch McConnell. He made a little announcement this week.
Annie,
stepping down. The thing, it was so like, politicians are so dramatic. He's like, I'm stepping down from Senate leadership. And like half the internet was like, oh, he's stepping down. Thank God. He's like 82 years old and is like, you know, Skeletor. But no, he's just stepping down from leadership. So when talking about some of his accomplishments as Senate, in a leadership position in the Senate, he said,
the most important decision I've made in my entire political career was not to fill the Supreme Court vacancy when Justice Scalia passed away.
Which, if we all can recall,
to steal a seat.
Yes.
To steal a seat on the Supreme Court. Yep. Pretty consequential. That gave us Hobbs.
Yeah. So, time
and then
to
they
say
went
goodbye.
and did the opposite. And then they went and did the opposite, because they refused to do it for when Obama was still, but then we had to wait.
Right. So then RBG passed away, and rather than follow a normal confirmation process, they jammed Amy Coney Barrett through faster than a
week.
He announced it. McConnell himself, in his like statement as Senate Majority Leader, like that was like multi-paragraph like statement about RBG's passing, included that they would be moving along with proceeding to fill the seat in his statement about her passing. Like,
horrifying.
The level of disrespect.
Trump nominated Amy Coney Barrett just weeks before the election.
Like, people had already started sending in mail-in ballots.
Right.
McConnell's rationale for blocking Obama's appointment was that it was an election year. So Obama nominated Garland in March of 2016. Trump nominated Amy Coney Barrett on September 26, 2020. Straight to jail.
Let's
that
just say
era, the vibes were so bad. And like McConnell, all of the Republicans in general, like, I think it was a Lindsey Graham clip of like literally him saying like, if this was reversed, like I would still be whatever. And he just like,
totally,
he was like, use my words against me, I think was the clip.
If there's a Republican president in 2016 and a vacancy occurs in the last year of the first term, you can say Lindsey Graham said, let's let the next president, whoever it might be, make that nomination, and you could use my words against me, and you'd be absolutely right.
And then like people, and he was like, I don't care.
Literally. And I think
they don't care.
That is the legacy of Mitch McConnell. We talked about legacy. The legacy of Mitch McConnell is partisan politics above all. That literally anything is fair game if it advances your personal power and position. That is what Mitch McConnell stands for above all else. And that is what he will be remembered for the next 2 generations as we deal with the Supreme Court being completely taken over by the far right, and a generational challenge for us to figure out how to fix it and how to restore confidence in a court that has been captured by ideologues. You know what I mean?
Do I know what you mean?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you know what I mean? Like, do you get
know what I
it?
mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we got work to do, people.
But
really quickly.
that work starts now with replacing Justice Sonia Sotomayor. There's an incredible piece by actually a personal friend of mine, Josh Barrow, who is an incredible writer and thought leader in the space. And he wrote this great piece about why Justice Sotomayor must retire this year to ensure that she is replaced by Joe Biden, that Joe Biden picks her replacement. In order for that to happen, as we have seen, because of the way that Republicans have now handled Supreme Court appointments, we have to have both the White House and Senate to get an appointment through.
Mhm.
And we cannot guarantee that after November, we will have either one of those things in the next 4 years, in the next 8 years, in the next 12 years. We cannot say for sure. And she's turning 70 this year. And so it's a huge gamble to say, okay, we just hope that at some point in the next, 8 years, we have both the Senate and White House at the same time, 12 years.
Totally.
That's a risk that we should not be willing to take.
Right.
So
Thoughts?
Justice
Agreed?
I agree. I don't want to be in a position that we as, progressive individuals have been in because of people not wanting to retire. I'm not obviously a Supreme Court justice. I can't imagine it's that easy of a job.
Are you not? Cancel this pod.
Breaking news.
I'm out.
You are actually like eligible though. There's like very few actual requirements.
I did take the LSAT, Annie. I took the LSAT.
You don't even need to be a lawyer. You don't need to the more I learn about the Supreme Court, like, you don't really need to be anything. Like,
Sorry.
you just have to get appointed and then be confirmed.
Sorry, I didn't finish my thought. We need Justice Sotomayor to retire to be replaced by Glenys Mahar.
I do have opinions, and I do like to write very strongly worded emails. So this could be a good fit.
She'd be like,
you can beef with your op. Like, then you could really
totally
be with Clarence Thomas. You guys would literally be like,
this is it. This is my play. This is my play to do that. I was like, get on Vibes Only. Start pitching myself.
The lawyers would literally be making a case, and Glenys would have a little toy RV on the desk on the day.
Yeah, like
just kind of like
my Price is Right fantasy would come alive.
Just trolling Clarence Thomas.
Oh my god! Just driving back and forth.
And let me just say, because I did get yelled at online when I posted about this, it goes without saying that we think that Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito should also retire. Like, they are 73 and
old.
And 75. And so they are older. And so I think that they should retire too. But that seems less likely because they are ideologues. Both of them are actually pretty much zealots. And so the odds of them letting Biden choose their replacement are like slim to none. And so that's why we are saying to Sotomayor, like, you have a vested interest in making sure the jurisprudence that you have set forth, that you've spent your entire career building a school of thought around the law, and that will be better preserved if your replacement is picked by Biden. Whereas Clarence Thomas and Alito feel the opposite. And so it's just less likely. It's not to say that we think women should retire sooner or anything like that. Obviously,
right.
I'm just saying.
No, I know.
We think the men should go too. They just are not as incentivized to do so.
For sure. They're zealots. You're right. So Justice Sotomayor, if you're listening today to Vibes Only, this is our plea to you to please consider.
Plea to you.
If you're catching this on TikTok.
Yeah. Please consider retiring. I'll throw a banger of a party for you. Okay. We're going to talk about one more person who's stepping down.
Woo!
Kyrsten Sinema.
Bye, girl.
But also, okay, we talked about her recently on the pod about how she loves to be the center of attention.
Yes.
Kel surprise that she was like, you know what day I'm going to announce? Super Tuesday.
Totally.
Like, what? No. Get over it.
Guys, this is great news. Sinema has stood in the way of a lot of progress. She left the Democratic Party a couple of years ago, like during Biden's term. Again, was very much a like attention seeking kind of move. She insisted that she was going to mount an independent run for the seat and has finally announced that she will not be running this year, which leaves the Democratic lane wide open for Ruben Gallego. Carrie Lake, absolutely bonkers, election denier extraordinaire, running as the Republican.
Crazy.
And this makes it a 2-person race that I think Ruben's odds greatly improved today.
Yeah, and then there's no worry about, Democrats who maybe still like Sinema, like sticking with her, and there's no
all 15 of them.
Yeah.
I do think like most people just genuinely disliked her.
It wasn't a vibe. When she was like, I'm going to be an independent, it was like, okay, go sit at the table by yourself because Bernie won't even have you.
It was just attention. It was just for attention and to be like, well, I'm going to back people into a corner. But yeah.
Which by the way, like I do appreciate anyone who's willing to have a real conversation about like the dysfunction in the 2-party system, but only to progress policies that are going to help Americans. And she didn't do that. So thank you.
Say that again, because I'm all for people who like have their own policy positions and who like see things a different way. If you're going to vote against the party, like that's all cool, but you need to have like a consistent value system that you're operating from. And hers was just like the last donor that she met with was the person that she was representing, and it just changed constantly. She killed the tax on the carried interest. There was a policy to close the carried interest loophole, which allows people working in finance who make tons of money to make more money and to not pay taxes on it in the way that they should. And they were going to close that loophole and use that money to pay for part of the original Build Back Better package. And she was like, nope, we're just not going to do that. My donors aren't down, essentially.
And her old quotes, when you see old quotes of hers, like from before she was in office, and I think she did some organizing and different things. There's one article, oh God, that I read one time, and it's just like, it's so off base from where she is now. And it's just so clear that she doesn't have a value system that she really like feels at her core. And it's also just so disappointing because I think when she first was elected, she was this like a little quirky girly that like was wearing some like fits that like would piss off Republicans, and like she's bisexual, and like people were like, oh, like she's just like a little quirky silly girl, and like that's great that we're having like, and then she just went and didn't care about literally anyone but herself.
It's giving. Well, this week is actually giving Another One Bites the Dust. While McConnell and Sinema are heading for the doors, we have one person who literally can't get enough and is coming back for more.
I have an important announcement to make. As of today, I am unsuspending my campaign for the presidency of the United States. I had suspended it because I was losing the horse race. But something so much more important than the horse race is at stake here, and we must respond.
It's giving zombie apocalypse. It's giving literally back again. Shangela.
It's kind of giving to me like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and that I feel like she should be like smoking a cigar, and like the way that she like it's giving shoulder choreography, like the way she's like moving her body. I don't like mind her. I think you know this about me. Like I don't think she was ever a true threat to democracy or the election.
I mind.
And
I mind.
Yeah.
I mind her.
It's kind of giving like if Gwyneth Paltrow played a presidential candidate
literally
in a movie and like had to make a video and talk about it, like very like Goop
It is giving goop.
Goop. It is giving goop.
Absolutely.
Giving like Gwyneth Paltrow when she's like being real, but like
It's giving Gwyneth Paltrow on the stand at her ski trial.
You ruined my ski holiday.
Yeah,
exactly,
totally.
exactly. Like there's no one that's looked more like their ski holiday was ruined and they'd go to trial for it than Gwyneth Paltrow at that trial. That's why.
Unsuspending your presidential campaign is camp. Like, just by definition,
It's
there's no way
so
to
camp.
You can't do that gracefully.
The glitter in her eyes as she's talking about it, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Marianne Williamson is back.
100%.
Like, girl, where are you going? Where are you going?
It's kind of giving, oh my God, what's her name? The president of the like resistance in the Hunger Games. President Coin. It's kind of giving
President Coin.
I did enjoy that her suspended campaign before it was unsuspended got more votes than Dean Phillips's not suspended campaign.
Annie, we already know that you are in way too many group chats. You are definitely that girl. You are giving the group chat girly. Are you active in the chat or are you a silent viewer in the chat?
Good question, Brian.
I'm not actually in that many group chats. I'm active in the ones that I'm in, like a few specific ones, and they all like, I know what, like I send different things to different ones. One is a staffer Swiftie chat. And
I'm a new Swiftie, Annie. I'm a new Swiftie. I don't know if you knew this about me. Thank you.
We'll discuss, but yeah, I don't have that many. I also feel like the ones that I'm in, like they each have their own vibe and they're each like discussing specific things. I don't know.
Well, Annie, you brought something up earlier that we said, hold it for the group chat. Jason, Kelce, this is Fly Eagle Fly, Philadelphia. What's going on?
Yeah, Jason Kelce.
She just took off her coat and she's wearing a big Jason Kelce shirt.
This is also a Taylor Swift Jason Kelce like thing. It's 3, 2, 1, let's go, bitch.
Wow. Okay, so it's a combo.
Multiple references I don't understand.
I really like that so much of the world, like outside of just like Eagles fans, have been exposed to like Jason Kelce and like all that he is. People should go watch his documentary. Like he's just like a good guy. It's called Kelce. And he's just like, he's got his kids, he's got his wife who like he talked about at the press conference, and like if your partner doesn't treat you like that, like it's not it.
If it's not that, I don't want it.
Right.
Brian has that hung over his kitchen, you know, like the farmhouse poster.
Ray Dunn?
Absolutely.
Is it like Ray Dunn?
No. Wait, what? Who's
what?
That?
What's that?
Ray Dunn is the like brand at TJ Maxx.
Oh, for sure. It's that. It's exactly that.
Wow.
It's exactly
that.
Not like, Annie getting the joke more than we get the joke.
Than us. We're like, who?
That you're trying to make.
And there were a lot of funny tweets of like, because he was crying during the whole press conference.
Oh, we saw.
Like, iconic. But people were like, Lord, please take Jason Kelce's pain away and give it to the Supreme Court. Lord, please take Jason Kelce's pain away and give it to Mitch McConnell.
Period.
Mine was like, who the F did I marry? Where the F is Kate Middleton? Which I also like don't really care. Like, let Kate heal in peace. Taylor Lorenz was in my group chat because she had a pretty amazing interview.
Bing, 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 bing. Yep, same.
Brian, want to take this one?
Taylor Lorenz, who is sort of the whisperer of many influencers and is a journalist for the Washington Post, did an in-person interview, somewhat impromptu. Like, I think that it was supposed to be 5 minutes and ended up being an hour-long interview with Chaya Raichek, who is famous for running the account Libs of TikTok, which is this far right anti-LGBT propaganda machine that like targets hospitals, schools, teachers, super transphobic, like consistently results in death threats and bomb threats to places that are literally kind. Yeah, right. Lots of doxing going on, trying to get people fired, has gotten many teachers fired, like things
and
like that.
Doxing, for those who don't know, is basically when someone exposes your whereabouts, like where you live.
Yeah,
personal
identifiable information.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so Taylor Lorenz sat down with Chaya, and it is an incredible interview. She sort of dismantled her. Like she had it was like 404 network error, like connection not found. She just had no answers to anything.
Well,
no answers to anything.
I think that like I don't know what she thought, because like Taylor is like very talented journalist.
Absolutely.
And I think because she's like, and this is
I don't think she thought anything, Annie. I don't think there was
I don't know if she thinks.
Do not compute.
But like I feel like she thought that she was gonna get there and like own it, but like you have to answer questions, and there was going to be like a camera, so you can't like skirt around things like maybe you can on the internet.
Right, on Twitter.
Because it's a real life interview.
It's a person that's talking to you.
And Taylor's like intelligent and good at her job.
Totally.
Like
it's a really crazy interaction. Like the whole interview, she really has she's like, Taylor's asking her very basic questions. Like, what is the harm of like a trans person existing in the world? Like, what harm does that cause you or someone else? And
she's like, none.
Zero. Yeah. She literally says like, well, there doesn't have to be a material harm, right? Is like the answer there. It doesn't make any sense.
Annie, thank you so much for joining us.
Truly. So much great insight. I love following you online.
Thanks.
Our good vibe, goodbye for you this week comes from the great state of Arizona. So in Arizona, Governor Katie Hobbs is canceling $2 billion in medical debt for over 1 million residents. This is a win on many levels. So in 2022, we flipped the governor's seat in Arizona, and Joe Biden passed the American Rescue Plan. And then boom, here we are 2 years later, still seeing the benefits of that as Katie Hobbs uses that piece of legislation to now forgive medical debt for people who are in dire need.
It's amazing. I would love to see more of this. We know that the health insurance industry in America is not great. So this was the largest ever initiative to cancel the debt. It was through a partnership with, this name is a little too much for me, but RIP medical debt. A little too on the nose.
Yeah, totally. And basically, this program is going to help Arizonans who are earning less than 400% of the federal poverty line, or whose debt is 5% or more of their income. So the people who need it most, this is like I think a redistributive kind of program in the right way, where people spending money on medical debt is not helping the economy. Like that's not lifting people up. That's just a drain on people's resources. And we should all be able to have the medical care that we need. So I love to see this big win for Arizona, big win for Biden again. And thank you, Katie Hobbs.